Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are in the world, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. Hope you're having a cup of your favorite beverage, like I am. And if you're having it in a Cichlids and Coffee cup, tell me in the chat. I'll give you a shout out. The reviews and the feedback are unanimous that coffee does taste better in a Cichlids and Coffee cup. So how y'all doing? I hope you're doing great. And who do we have in house here? Davey Larson, AV is great. Thank you, Davey. Kept me from having to ask for an AV check. I appreciate that greatly. Peace and Haps in the house. Midwest Aquatics. Hey, Denny. Denny is in the house as well with an AV check. Let's see here. I am scrolling the, looks like we're going to be missing Cat Sailor. I really love it when people go out and do good stuff. Paul Newman in the house. Hello to you, my friend. John Yancey's here. Angelo's in the house. Larry O'Brien from Clearwater. Wow. Larry, your beach was rated as one of the nicest beaches in America. Clearwater Beach. I'd like to go down there and take a look. I've been to Clearwater, but I haven't been to the beach. Let's see here. Michael in the house. Let's see here. Adam's here. Karen Sue. Hey, Karen Sue. Have I seen you before, Karen? Karen Sue? Are you from down south? That sounds like a down south name. And let's see here. Renee in the house from Texas. And Eric is here. Cheers to you, my friend. Z-Zip in the house. Brian Park, good morning to you. Grooming dogs. My two beagles are right at the top of the stairs behind me here. And usually they'll sleep through my live streams, like a lot of you. And I'm just kidding. But they will sleep through the live streams unless somebody comes up to the door. Now, interestingly enough, we had a delivery the other day, and they didn't ring the doorbell. They didn't touch the door. They just left the bag. They can't see the door. They're far from the door, and they lost their minds. How do they know that? That somebody walked up on the porch, dropped a package, and walked off. I'm telling you, that dog radar is something. Kimberly's in the house, and DSGF, and who else here? Robert Egan. Frank. Hey, Frank. Good to see you, my friend. GP. Hello, my friend. GP in the house. So, let's, we got some more folks getting on here. Let's go ahead and, do, the official start here. All right, now it's official. When you folks watch the replay, just look for that dropping, for that little dropping video there, and you'll know that that's where you need to jump in. Sometimes folks who are not familiar with live streams, they'll get on sometimes, and their comment will be, "I can't believe I had to wait 2 minutes. I had to wait 3 minutes." I mean, there are some live streamers out there, some probably more related to some of the newscasts and things like that. They'll have a reoccurring screen for a whole day, just telling you that the live stream is going to be starting, and so it's real funny. So if that repost so they probably don't repost it that way. In my case, it just uploads as a replay, and so that front end stays on there. But some people run that long front end because it lets people who get notifications see those notifications and get onto the live stream. So I see why they do it. But it's just funny to me that people will complain that I had to go up to the 2-minute mark before there was any. Anyway, that concludes today's rant. There'll be no more ranting in today's live stream, I assure you. Happy Saturday to you, Chandra. And Joe Hanny is on. Good afternoon to you. And it looks like Paul is going to be going out and buying a rimless tank. Did you say, Paul? Did you say a Aqueon? An Aqueon rimless? I didn't know Aqueon made a rimless. Now, my only concern, Paul, is if it's a frameless, is the thickness of the glass. Because if they're using the same thickness as their other tanks, or even just a little bit thicker, you're not going to have really enough adhesive. You really have to have a lot of adhesive to hold together frameless tanks for long periods of time. Otherwise, the lifespan of the tank will be short. So just check, compare the thickness of the glass, and if it's at least double of their normal tanks, you should be okay. I think the average lifespan for a frameless, rimless type tank is 10 years. And they say you're better off because you can't really reseal them like you can with a frame tank. But it'll be fun. I love my rimless. I've got a little 20-gallon Live Bear rimless. And of course, my 90-gallon is a rimless tank. And they're fun. It's almost like just having a cube of water sitting there. So they're fun tanks. So good luck with that. And I hope you send me some pictures as you get it set up. And once you have it all ready, maybe we'll show it in the live stream. What do you think? Send me a picture once you've set it up. Love to see that. ASMR in the house from Montenegro. ASMR, tell me a little bit more about Montenegro. Where is Montenegro? It sure is a familiar name, but for some reason, I'm not placing it on my global awareness is not spotting where Montenegro is. All right, let's see here. Lady Diane in the house has several Aqueon rimless tanks. And you're happy with them, Lady Diane? You give Paul Newman a tip here. You're happy with them? The seams hold together well? No problems with leaks? Okay. And Michael says, yes, they are thicker glass. Good. That's good news. Very good news. ASMR next to Croatia. Okay, next door to Croatia on the Adriatic. Wow. Well, thank you, ASMR, for joining me from the other side of the world. I really appreciate that. And I hope life is good for you out there in Montenegro. All right. So today's topic, apart from your questions and the guidance that you'll be giving me in the chat today, I don't have a video for you. It's just going to be us chatting. Just you folks and these guys and gals. When I talk about the African cichlids, it's always these guys because that's an all-male tank. But here I've got males and females. I can't really tell what this Oscar is. Can you tell? Is this a male or a female Oscar? Do you have a way of knowing? See, with the African cichlids, if they have a long anal fin, a pointed dorsal, color, you know the males. There are a couple exceptions, but usually that's the case. A little harder with these South and Central Americans. Now, the fish like the Nicaragua have a completely different shape. They don't have the large nuchal hump, and they're not as round and thick as the male. So the female is very easy. Plus, the female has a little bit more subtle color, which I love. And of course, the Salvini, which you'll see over here in a little bit. Come over here, Salvini. Those are also very easy to tell, the female, because the female has the red belly, which was a complete fluke that I got one because I didn't know the males and females, and I just happened to end up with a female, and she is spectacular, and she'll be coming over here in a little bit, I'm sure, to say hello. Someone told me my Jack is a female. I don't know what my green tear is. Anyway, all part of the learning process as getting into the South and Central Americans. So let's see. Lady Diane loves those rimless tanks. All right. Very, very good. ASMR says it's warm enough. There's a tropical pond on the terrace. Wow. Heats it in the winter. Do you keep goldfish? Do you have goldfish in it? Maybe not, because you probably wouldn't have to heat it in the winter, right? I mean, you can pretty much freeze over a goldfish pond without a problem. So let's talk a little bit about these different kinds of fish, the pluses and minuses of keeping these fish, and then I want you folks to hit me with your questions, and I'll be happy to take them up. But as you know, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that this channel started with cichlids, with big cichlids, and what prompted this topic, sort of indirectly, was somebody commenting under one of my videos. I haven't been to your channel for a while, and I was really shocked to see that you're keeping smaller fish. And because everything about my channel was big fish. So it just got me thinking, that it's a real different direction. It's a real different kind of fish. And there are some real differences there. And it almost sounds like the person was a little bit disappointed that I had betrayed the cichlid world, which I don't think I have. But oh, by the way, let me just mention one thing here before we go on here. I sometimes forget about this, but I just want to shout out to my Patreon supporters and thank them for their ongoing monthly support. They really provide a sort of backbone and stability to the channel that allows me to do some of the things I do. A very big shout out to all of you who have become monthly Patreon Garage Gang members. Information on the Garage Gang is in the description below the video. And also, for those of you who'd like to pick up a mug or a t-shirt or anything like that, some channel swag, visit my Teespring store and you will see mugs and t-shirts and all kinds of stuff that you can pick up. And it does support the channel when you do that. And one last thing, I call this the bill paying segment. In today's live stream, if you folks do a super chat of $15 or more, that way you help the channel and cover the shipping, I'm going to send you the best towel in fish keeping. This is the Aquarium Co-op. The Aquarium Co-op towel. Sometimes you see those in my video. I'll have one over my shoulder. But what I love about this towel is that it actually absorbs. You can clean the glass. You can pick up a spill. You can clean your glass tops, and it actually absorbs. And I'll include some of this very high quality, highly researched Sarah food. I'll include a couple packets of Sarah food and a towel for super chats today that are $15 or more. My way of saying thank you for throwing a little money at the speaker. So there you go. Now, somebody mentioned to me, I'll get rid of that. Someone mentioned that asking for subscribers or support is cringy. You love that word? Cringy? It was cringy. So, they were asking for thumbs up and and subscribers and support. And I think the comment was, I like the channel, but asking for subscribers was cringy. Do you think that's cringy to ask for subscribers? Just curious. Give me your comments in the chat and let me know if things are cringy around here. All right. ASMR says, I have guppies, platies, plecos, and bristlenose, and a musk turtle in that pond. Very, very cool. Must be nice to sit out there at night by that pond. Very, very cool. Peas and Haps Forever agrees that I am a traitor to the cichlid community, and I should be tarred and feathered. Oh. All right. So let's take a look at some of the advantages. First of all, you can't really interact. You can't really interact this way with some of the smaller fish. You don't really get that look right in the eye. You know, I can tell. I mean, maybe you can if you get really close, but I can tell with these Oscars and the Vieja and Salvinis. I mean, I can tell that they're looking right at me. I mean, they've got like, okay, dude, I see you. Now, are you going to put some food in this tank? Or do I have to go out there and slap you around a little bit? I mean, they give me the look. And there's a connection there that I don't think is going to be really that available in with a smaller, you know, with a nano fish or a you know, with you know, your fish that are like under an inch. Now that being said, I do feel that kind of connection with my betta. My betta comes up, he looks at me, he flares out, he goes sideways and spreads his fins and goes, "Look how beautiful I am, dude. Why don't you drop a bloodworm in here?" So there is a connection with my with the betta. The live bears, they're just chaos. They're just, you know, the platies, mollies, and guppies. It's beautiful chaos because it's beautiful flashes of color, but it's chaos. They're just swimming around, and if I get too close, they scatter. Unless my hand's at the top, and they think there's going to be food, and then they all run up to the top. But you can't really get this kind of a this kind of an interaction, and you certainly can't get a fish that is going to hold on to your finger and to the point where you actually pull them out of the tank a little bit, which happened with my Oscar. That's not a connection you're going to make with a guppy. Now, don't get me wrong. In all of this, in everything I say today, none of this is a knock on small fish. I think small fish are and nano tanks and planted nano tanks and, you know, little shrimp. And I think they're adorable. I think they're very pretty. There are some small, you know, cobra or snakeskin or certain types of guppies that there's certain kinds of platies that'll just like, oh my goodness, look at the colors on that thing. So they're beautiful. They're beautiful. But with regards to interaction and a connection of some kind and a that sort of that water puppiness that we talk about, you're going to need bigger fish for that. You're going to need big fish for that. And I'm sure there are exceptions, and there's probably somebody that's going to comment under this video, "Oh, that's nonsense. I had a guppy that used to jump through a hoop for me and eat from my hand." There's always going to be exceptions. I get that. Now, the downside is, of course, some of the obvious ones. You need big tanks. And with big tanks comes a need for lots of room, a strong floor, more filtration, greater, a greater cost in the cost of not just water, but electricity, filtration, and of course, food. I mean, I go through in feeding this tank, which is 210 gallons, and the 300-gallon tank, I go through a fair amount of food every week in feeding these tanks. Now, did some of you catch a recent video by Father Fish where he talked about how we're overfeeding our fish? I'd love to get some feedback on that from you folks. He talked about not feeding fish for months. And then he would drop in a little bit of chicken or a little bit of fish like tilapia or something. But he wouldn't feed them for months. I mean, what did you folks catch that video? And what are your thoughts on it? I mean, if I feed these fish either once or twice a day, and on the days where I feed them once a day, the next day, like let's say I feed them in the morning, the next morning they're losing their minds going after the food. And he said that we're overfeeding our fish and that he would go months. Now, I don't know, is that in a tank that has a lot of stuff they can nibble like in the substrate, or I don't know. But I definitely would like to get your feedback on that. I mean, I like Father Fish. I think he's a really good guy, but I just never heard that before. I've heard you can go a couple of weeks. You can go, and with African cichlids, you can go 20, 25 days. I mean, think about it. The females will hold those eggs, right? And the brooding, they'll go for what? 20 to 25 days with no food. And so we know that that their fat stores, that their stored fat will sustain them for a long period of time. But then after they, after the fry are out, they got to start eating because they are very weak. So several months, that to me was kind of amazing. Now, so any information or comments, ideas you have on that, I'd love to hear about it because that was a surprise to me. So the feeding cost of large fish comes that big old vieja. Take a look at this vieja. I don't know if it's a male or a female. I kind of get a female vibe. Is that weird? I get a female vibe. Might be a female, but I don't know. Big fish does get into it with the Oscar sometimes. They'll face off, and the Oscar will open his mouth, just the size of a 2-car garage, and they'll just stare down and then go swimming different directions. They don't really get into it like where they damage each other. Kind of like the Nicaragua and the firemouth. They'll go ahead and stare down, and I think I've seen them lip lock maybe once, but it's always just a stare down. So at any rate, feeding is going to be a factor. Floor space and cost of just running utilities, running filters and heaters in the wintertime and lighting, and you need 72-inch light strips, and your water changes are just doing a third is 100 gallons on my 300 gallon. I mean, that's you're getting into a lot of cost. Whereas with a 10, 15 gallon tank with a sponge filter, running an air stone in a sponge filter, I mean, that's going to be hardly a bleep on your utility bill. Hardly a bleep. Maybe barely noticeable. Maybe in the winter when the heater kicks on, but otherwise it's going to be, and the amount of food, I mean, like with my live bears, I mean, that's a real teeny pinch of crushed up extreme community and maybe a little bit of Sarah. With my betta, 2 or 3, 4 or 5 little pellets, right? North fin, betta food or bug bites. It's the cost is almost inconsequential. It's almost immaterial. So there's a massive gap in cost, massive gap in space requirement, in the strength of your floors. So where you're going to put it. I mean, there's considerations that are just not even on the radar of a small fish keeper. Now, something maybe a little bit dark or morbid, but when you lose a small little fish, it's upsetting. It's a little bit of a loss, right? You got 25 platies. You wake up one morning, one of them's belly up. They don't live that super long, which is another drawback with the smaller fish. They just don't live that super long, as opposed to these kinds of fish, which can go years and years. Well, when one dies, it's usually a matter of just scoop them out and put them in the yard for fertilizer, or some people flush them. Some people give them a Viking burial. I mean, however you do it, but you're disposing of something this big. One of these fish die, and I mean it's traumatic just on the sheer size of the animal that you now need to actually dispose of. You have this pretty large critter that you have to, go out and dig a hole. And some people bag them and throw them away. Some people do different things, but it's different. It's a little bit different when a little nanofish dies as opposed to a 12-inch, pound and a half fish. I mean, I'm sorry. It just has a different impact on a person, I think. This is just me. You tell me what you think. But the shorter lifespans and, how you deal with them and what you have to deal with when one of these fish expire is a little bit different. Now, one other point. The actual cost of the fish. Now, I don't know if you want to talk about inflation or whatever, but if you go out and you want to buy, you want to pick up a large colored up African cichlid, it's gotten a little bit ridiculous. Certainly at my local fish store, I'll see a kind of a plain hybrid African cichlid is coming in at $45 to $65. And I'm talking about the aquarium that says assorted cichlids on it, right? I'm not talking about an aquarium that says Malawi Trouts, Buccochromis notatanias. No, nothing like that. This is assorted hybrid mixes and $45 to $65. So the cost of cichlids has gotten a little bit crazy. Whereas I can go in the same store, I can walk over to the neon tank and get 16 neons for $9, right? Something like that. They'll have these sales where they'll do just a dozen of this fish, $6. I mean, they just like, and so definitely financially, it's a real different game with your small live bearers, your small egg layers, real different. Unless you get into something exotic, right? So cost is going to be a very big factor. So just considerations that I'm kind of throwing out there about one versus the other. Heating in the wintertime, you got to heat a 300-gallon tank. It's going to be massively different from throwing a 10-watt tank or a 5 or 10-watt heater into a nano tank. You're going to be running two 800-watt, 2,000-watt heaters, and those puppies are going to be working all day. And again, that's not going to be just a blip on your utility bill. You're going to notice a difference. So things to keep in mind, and this is why your help, whether it's super chats, subscribing, using my Amazon link, getting stuff from the Teespring store, your help comes in super handy, because to keep everything going that I have running here, even though I'll admit it's a lot cheaper than when I was in California, the cost of water and utilities is probably a third of what I was paying in California. But still, there's a lot of cost involved. And so, and I enjoy the heck out of it, don't get me wrong. And even if I didn't have a channel, I'd probably still do it. But it really does help that you folks help out. So let's take a look here at some of the things that you're talking about. But before we do, I'm gonna turn the camera around and show you the African cichlid tank. And for about a week now, it's been so calm in there. And I think the second I typed Malawi trout in the description under this live stream, something triggered in the Malawi trout's mind, and he knew I was talking about him, and he's fired up. He's got the blue and the purple and the gold and orange and the anal fin, and he's trying to clear out territory in the middle of the tank. So you'll be able to see that. Let me turn the camera and show you what's going on. Give me a second, because I've got to turn off some of these lights. Otherwise, you'll not be able to see through the glare. But hold on one second. And for those of you who tuned in late, any super chats over $15 will get a aquarium co-op towel, a towel that actually works, and some Sarah food. And I'll be sending it out in one of those custom Cichlids and Coffee envelopes that some of you are familiar with. So hold on, let me turn the camera around. Let me show you the AC tank. So hold on. So here's the African cichlid tank. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that the Malawi trout is acting a little worked up. They got a water change yesterday, and usually after the water change is when they'll go through this, when he'll actually start to go into breeding color. So you can see him there at the bottom. You see the deep, deep blue. He goes into that deep blue, almost goes into a little bit of a purple. He gets a yellowy orange in the tail. His bottom half becomes very dark. And it's almost like that's his way of broadcasting that, okay, I'm looking for love. Interestingly enough, the sand diver will pair up with him and do a little mating dance. And so the sand diver is not actually harassed at all. But the other fish, they know to stay clear. Look at that Fusco right in the middle of the screen. Just grown like a weed. Probably my fastest growing cichlid in this tank. Now, if you go out and try and get a hold of a large, let's say 6-7 inch, let's say a sand diver or a trout, a colored up confirmed male, 6 to 7 inches. Moderators, maybe one of my moderators, why don't you check the Cichlid Shack? Check Southeast Cichlids. Check Cunningham Cichlids. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what they're asking for a 6-7 inch or larger male African cichlid, whether it's a buccochromis, a sand diver, a trout, whatever it might be. Just give me a ballpark out there. It wasn't always like that, but right now, boy, oh boy. And my concern, of course, is that what's going to happen is the hobby is going to become, we're going to lose a lot of folks in the hobby who are keeping the more exotic African cichlids only because they're going to get priced out. They're just not going to, no, I'm not going to pay that much for a fish. Or folks are going to just start buying the smaller, like, okay, look, I'm going to buy 5 baby Buccochromis notatenias, grow them out, and sell 4 of them, and keep the male. So sometimes that can be the case. And when I first started in African cichlids, I was picking them up that way. I'd buy several young who sometimes they didn't even make it because they were just so small. But I'd buy several young, fragile African cichlids between 3 and 5 in the hope that I'd get one spectacular male. And I did. Occasionally get a very spectacular male. And then you have to, then either sell the other ones or take him to the local fish store. There he goes. You see him? See how he's pairing up with that trout or pairing up with that sand diver, flaring out his gills, flaring out, he's anyway, that trout is probably pushing 10 inches. Just to give you a perspective on the size of the fish in this aquarium, head to tail between 10 and 11 inches on that trout. It looks like somebody hit me with a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Robert Egan. Heads up, some cities in Texas are overdosing chlorine due to drought conditions and lack of rain. Be careful. Wow, good point, good catch. Certainly, if you're dosing the water, you should be okay. But sometimes when they superchlorinate, I mean, of course, the worst case scenario is the superchlorination and the person forgetting to dose or underdosing. But somebody finally explained to me why you dose when you go from tap to tank the way I do it. Why you dose for the full volume of the aquarium, because the amount of chlorine, ammonia, whatever it is that they're using, is designed to go after the entire volume that it encounters. It's not, it's there's some interesting chemistry that I don't really understand all of it, but it made sense on why, even though you're only replacing 100 gallons in a 300-gallon tank, you would dose the tank for the full 300 gallons, because the chlorine that's coming in from the tap is going to have a broader impact than just the water that you swapped out. But Robert, thank you for that. And I'll get one of these aquarium co-op towels out to you and some Sarah food. Just please be kind enough to send me a reminder email with your full mailing address. And I know I've got it on file somewhere, but please just go ahead and send that out to me, and I'll go ahead and mail this out to you. Let's swing around and take a look at the 90, which is doing a lot better after that hole in the head treatment I did, and now I'm running a UV light in the tank. Let me show you that tank. I have one of those aquarium co-op easy LED lights. Which allow me to turn it up and down. It's at a slight angle because that's just the way the tripod is. The fish in there are doing a lot better. You can see the UV is giving incredible water clarity. I'm currently running it 24/7, but I'm going to be cutting it back so that it just turns on and off with the light timer. It'll be on for just a few hours each day, but for about a week, I'm going to run it for just 24/7, just really clean it out. Interestingly enough, someone posted at the Facebook group, I think it was Frank Vera, posted a picture of one of his geos, and it had the exact same pattern on the head that my geos have. Which, I mean, the probability of that happening in two tanks in different parts of the world, I mean, it was just very interesting to me, and it kind of made the case kind of made the case for perhaps geos being predisposed to that kind of hole in the head disease. But at any rate, they went through their paracleanse cycle. They've been getting good regular water changes. They're being fed a variety of food from fresh organic vegetables, bloodworms, Sarah, Extreme. I mean, they're getting a lot of different kinds of food, Northfin, and I think they're doing about as well as you can do right now. Since we're going around, let's go ahead and take a look at the planted tank. Let me turn the light up on that too. I'm really loving the hornwort. That hornwort. I mean, I really like Sprite, but the Sprite would kind of dirty up a little bit, and it would tend to kind of melt back a bit. But this hornwort, which is actually grown by Aquatic Critter right here locally in Tennessee, they actually just have tubs of it that they grow and they harvest and sell. And so I've just become really enthused about hornwort. And in my live bear tank, it's become the sanctuary, the refuge of the babies. The babies hide in the hornwort. So I'm going to definitely be buying more of that hornwort. And from what I understand, is it will over time propagate. It'll grow so much that after a while, I probably will not have to keep buying it. I'll just be able to take cuttings from my own hornwort and transfer it to different aquariums. But I've been really, really excited and happy about that particular plant. Looks like somebody else hit me with a super chat. What do we got here? Il Cancellieri. Thank you for that super chat, my friend. Much appreciated. And Davey Larson hit me with a super chat for the cause, and I'm good on the swag. Thanks for your time and energy, Ben. Davey, my pleasure, and thank you so much for that. Very appreciated. Lady Diane loves her hornwort. All right. Let me turn this camera back around. Let's get back to it and take up some of your questions. Got to be a little careful when you spin that camera around. You don't want to catch you don't want to pull cables and knock over lights and things. Never fun during a live stream. All right, so let's take a look at what's on your mind. Take a look at the chat and what you've got going on. And again, thank you for those super chats. Not sure if I missed any other ones. Let me scan back there. think I got all the super chats. Thank you so much for those. If I did miss you, I'm sorry, but I didn't ignore you. So, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now, and I will do my best to address them if I can. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to pretend that I do. All right. GP, thank you for asking for a thumbs up. I appreciate that. DSGF, Ben, I have assorted cichlids. I found 2 babies in my tank. I'm sure the rest got eaten, but how many babies do they typically have? Well, when you say assorted cichlids, if you're talking African cichlids, you'll see 20, 30. I mean, they don't have massive amounts. Now, there are some fish, some of these South and Central American fish, I've heard they can lay 100 to 200 eggs. And there are some African cichlids, I believe, that will give you a large, like trouts, I think. There are some that will give you a large amount. But the African cichlids, and I think it's probably because of the mouth brooding. I mean, there's only so much the female can carry. So it kind of limits it a little bit. Whereas the South and Centrals, I mean, they'll just cover a rock with eggs and guard the rock and fan the eggs and keep them clean. And they can give you massive amounts. And without doubt, you probably did lose. Some of them did get eaten right away. And then you got to pull, try and catch those fry. I mean, catching fry is an adventure all onto itself. Then you got to set up a tank, grow them out. And in my live bear tank, that little 20-gallon rimless that I have from Glass Cages, I just put there's a lot of Sprite, a lot of hornwort in there. And if they make it, they make it. And there's about probably 5 in there right now that are putting on some good size that were born in the tank. So some of them, the smarter, faster ones are making it. We have a little bit of Darwin, a little bit of natural selection going on. The slower, not so smart ones are not surviving. But yeah, the American cichlids, DSGF, you probably had, who knows, 50, 60 fry, assuming the eggs didn't get eaten. Because the eggs are like, they're like caviar for these fish. I mean, they're like a delicacy. And if one of the parents goes sort of off duty and doesn't guard them the way they're supposed to, those eggs get eaten. They get eaten up real quick. I once had a tank back in California that was, every fish in there was bought as a male cichlid. Some of you that have been with me a long time remember the 150-gallon acrylic that I had in my bedroom in California, and I would find fry in there all the time. And I had one of those artificial 3D backgrounds from Universal Rocks over in Texas. And they would go back there and hide. But anyway, I think I had a polystigma. Looks a lot like a living stone eye, except a little bit more patterned. I had a polystigma, and I think that was a female. And anyway, Angelo says, let nature take its course. And that is what a lot of folks choose to do. They just, okay, let's, they get a little bit of fresh live food, a lot better than feeder fish. All right, any other questions? Go ahead and throw them at me. And let's take some up here before we end off. Zen Ginger, hornwort melts in my tanks and turns into the Christmas tree I forgot to water and took out to the curb in February. Needles everywhere. Now, when I first put the hornwort in, there was, plants go through a shock. I did have a lot of needles floating around. And then it sort of settled in. Now, I don't know if it's because it's grown here locally and really likes the water here, the pH, the hardness, things like that. But it seems to be doing well. And there's movement in the tank. There's circulation. Maybe that's helping. It moves around. But I don't know. It seems to be doing okay. Fingers crossed, right? I've only had it for a little while, so I'm not going to pretend to be the hornwort guru, but seems to be doing okay. But I can imagine if it did melt back, it would be a mess because every little stem has, 1,000 needles on it. All right, so I'm scanning back through the chat here. So the chat I talk about might not be on the screen. I see there was a little bit of a discussion on feeding. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at some of the comments that were made about letting fish go for months without food, especially big Oscars. Just knowing how they react when I miss one feeding. So much information floats around in this hobby. So much of it is anecdotal, and the only thing I could say is I just gotta I've just gotta really stress what I stress in the description under just about every one of my recent videos, at least for the last year, that what works in one aquarium may not work in your aquarium. Different filtration, different combination of fish, different types of food, different pH, so take everything you hear out there with a big giant block of salt and really research from multiple sources, and please be very reluctant to change anything in an aquarium where the fish are happy, active, colored up, healthy. Be very reluctant, no matter how good the tip sounds, be very reluctant to change anything in a working aquarium. And I just can't stress that enough. It looks like more people got on. Lady T, Renee Dequar, Rikas 1. A lot of other folks got on after CC Custom Leatherworks was in the house. All right. Glad you could catch the live. Boss says big difference from fish eating healthily and well compared to, I guess, scavenging to survive. I'd agree. Evan Glassifer, I've always kept smaller fish. When I lost one for unknown cause, I wonder what I did wrong. Losing one due to aggression is kind of understandable, but it's still sad. Yeah, I think it's always, sad to some degree. Some people just sort of blow it off and go, it's a fish. Other people it hits them a little bit harder. We're all sort of different on that emotional scale, I guess. Certainly the dealing with a fish. I mean, again, and not to pick on Father Fish, but just to refer back to something Father Fish said in a heavily planted tank. One of these small little fish die. He suggested just shoving them down into the substrate and using them as a sort of fertilizer and letting the plants take care of it. And you wouldn't do that with a 12-inch Oscar. I mean, you're just not going to do that. I mean, you're going to have an ammonia factory, right? So again, anything you hear on the internet, be sure to take it with a grain of salt and be sure that it applies to your situation. Hey, Salient Aquatics. Did I say hi to you, Salient, earlier in the chat? Not sure if I did. Peas and Haps Forever. My Malawi gar came to me already an adult, but became spectacular, I would say, after about 4 to 6 months. And now he's just a beautiful beast. Very similar coloration to the Fusco, but of course that amazing head and lips that a Malawi gar has. I call him my jazz trumpet player. I am scanning the chat. Peas and Haps Forever has a trout and thinks it might be a male. That's awesome. Trouts, hawks. There's several fish in just Buccochromis nototenas. It can take a very long time. And then eye biters, another example, take a very long time, a year or two, and then you discover you had a female. So those fish, buy 3 or 4 of them and let them grow out together, and keep them as long as they're getting along, but then be ready to have a tank ready. So El Canciliere, always following you on the background during my water changes. I love to hear that. I love to hear that folks will have me on while they're doing stuff. It's kind of cool. I've heard sometimes of shops like Super Cichlids over in Dover. If you don't know Super Cichlids, and Lisa and her family, check them out. Super Cichlids in Dover, Delaware. They'll run the live stream on their big screen TV on Saturdays. Very, very cool. A very good group of folks up there, and they sell a lot of quality products. One Fish 70. I'm from Indonesia. Wow. We're getting folks from all over the world. I love it. Davy Larson, hornwort grows like a weed in my tanks. I hope that occurs. I hope that's the case. And I'll just use cuttings and transfer it. I'll put more in the planted 55. I'll put some more in with the betta. The betta loves wedging himself up there in the floating plants and resting in them like he does with his little betta log. It looks like somebody else hit me with a super chat. Whips World. Very, very cool. Yeah. Whip, send me your address. It serves as a reminder and helps me speed up the process. Send me the email to ben.o.cichlid, and I'll send you both a towel and some Sarah food. Thank you so much, Whip. Al Drizzle, I think I mentioned that a little earlier when I replace water in the tank. Now, certainly if you're using buckets and you treat the water in the buckets, that's all you have to do. But when you're going right from the tap to the tank, you have to treat for the entire volume of the tank. So now with my larger tanks, I use safe, because you can treat an entire 300 gallons with a 1/4 teaspoon of safe. So a small container of safe can last you 2 years. Every now and then I'll use Prime, because Prime does have a slightly different combination of ingredients that can stimulate slime coat. So every now and then I'll use some of the Prime or some of the Fritz Complete liquid. But using liquid conditioners in very large tanks can get very, very expensive. Also, Fritz has a product called ACCR. Fritz ACCR. Again, a powder that can go a long way. So just something to keep in mind. So let's see here. Seems like the consensus is hornwort grows like crazy. Now, I'm not really sure why I'm having luck with the hornwort. Keep in mind, I do use liquid fert, right? I mean, your root tabs aren't going to do anything for hornwort. I imagine some of it dissolves into the water, but I do use the liquid, the Easy Green from the Aquarium Co-op, which the Aquarium Co-op is happy to send to me, and I thank them for that. All right, so it looks like we're over the hour, and I want to thank all of you for joining me today. You've been a wonderful group of fish keepers. That's the way I usually will promote the live stream. Come join me and a wonderful group of fish keepers, which you are. Don't be shy, you are. And I thank you for sitting here with me for an hour. And I thank all of you who gave it a thumbs up, who subscribed, who super chatted. And a special thank you to all of you who are Patreon monthly Garage Gang supporters. Special shout out to all of you. And a very big shout out to my wonderful moderators, the best moderators on YouTube. So there you go. I hope to see all of you this coming Saturday. I have a couple videos coming up. One of them is going to be a product review of a nano tank light. So look for that. And I have a couple other things cooking, a couple of other ideas. If you have an idea of a video that you'd like to see, after this video posts, the replay posts, go ahead and write under it. I'll go back and check the comments what topic you would like to see covered in a video, and I'll put it into the hopper. All right? So thank you, everybody, for all your help, all your support. You are the best. You know that. And that being said, I think we will go ahead and wrap up. You folks have a wonderful weekend wherever you are. Be safe and have fun and enjoy life. And I will see you folks. I'll see you folks next week. Don't forget, you're the best. You rock. And I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.